It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Bogie Bowles. Bogie graduated in 2015 from the University of North Carolina with a Master's of Social Work. A former professional musician, Bogie expanded his perspective of the connection between mental health and addiction while working at the psychiatric unit at Duke Hospital. Following his time at Duke, he then worked with a large addiction treatment facility, using his unique musical background to co-create a program specifically designed to treat music industry professionals. Bogie has been with Ascend Recovery in Utah since 2018, where he continues to further his experience in treating co-occurring disorders and to continue pursuing his passion for music and service. Bogie entered recovery from addiction at the age of 18. He has toured and recorded with various artists for over 20 years. In his personal life, he continues to play and record music, enjoys being in nature, and engages in the recovery community and practices meditation. Bogie is a hoot, and his story is not one that you will want to miss. So let's get to the interview now with Bogie on today's edition of Success is Subjective. Bogie, thanks for being a guest on the Success is Subjective podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I feel like, I have met you a few times in my touring, over the years, but I've never sat down and just asked you about your story. I've heard clips here and there, and obviously I've heard it from other people too, but I am so excited, and I'm going to take full advantage of having this one-on-one to hear the entire story. So tell the listeners, where did you grow up, and what was the information that you were hearing about what you're supposed to do after high school?
Yeah, okay. So I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. My family is from the Carolinas. Dad's family's from North Carolina. Mom's family's from South. And I grew up there. At the time, it's always been one of the bigger cities in South Carolina, but it's still, I lived a pretty privileged upbringing. I was a country club kid and all that kind of stuff. That's what I was born into. But it was pretty small town feel because everybody knew everybody. The South is kind of like that. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's business. So the cool thing about living in the South is if you meet somebody you don't know, you play the name game, and 5 minutes later, you know that you know somebody that knows them. And then you can call and get a background check on this person that you just met. And it kind of works. And so this is, I guess, pre-social media. And that's kind of how we did it back in the day. But I had a great childhood growing up there. It was cool. The expectation was you graduate high school and you go to college and you get your life started. And, you're going to be an adult now. Get on it. It was pretty much the understanding. The people that didn't go to college were in the minority in my social circle. And again, that speaks to a lot of things, but privilege is one of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up there. I'm in recovery. We know this. I didn't get into recovery by mistake, although I largely thought it was a mistake at the time when I went to treatment at 18. But so by the time I had completed ninth grade, my folks were really concerned, academically, what is this future going to look, all that stuff. So they shipped me off to boarding school in 10th grade. And so I went to Virginia Episcopal School in Lynchburg and had a great academic experience. Everything went up. The structure was really good for me, all that stuff. But I also got an advanced degree. I got what I call a PhD in drug use because, you put a bunch of kids in the middle of nowhere with their parents' money. What do you think is going to happen? And so I learned how to this is going to sound really weird, but I learned how to use effectively, meaning that I learned how to get away with it and hide things and really, enable my addiction to move on to a higher level. And it started to be a concern for me around 11th grade. I started to kind of worry about it. And I was like, I think I'm doing this, more than other people. And I think I have a different relationship with this stuff than the people around me do. And so I started kind of wondering, like, maybe this isn't for me. And I even told my parents, I said, look, here's the deal. I'm doing drugs up here, and I don't want to do that anymore. And at the time, I meant that. I didn't have the capacity, but I meant that. But I also really wanted to go home and be in this band that I played in. I'm a drummer, and I wanted to be in this band with my friends and all that. And I said, if you bring me home, it's probably going to be better for me to not use drugs and stuff like that. So I played a lot of angles, to get home for my senior year. And I did mean it. Now, I never said I'm going to stop drinking, because you don't do that in the South. You're kind of born with a bottle of bourbon and a pack of Reds. It's how we rolled back then. And so I went home for my senior year, and I hadn't done any drugs for a few months. And that summer, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston for this 5-week summer program. And I relapsed there. I started smoking weed again and doing psychedelics and all that kind of stuff. And so then I got home with more to hide. And I hit it well my senior year. I got into University of North Carolina, and I went up there, and then I was there for about 3 months. And then I was politely asked to leave. So that's kind of how it went.
And for anybody just listening to this, Bogie's doing a cheers move. Yep, and thank you, University of South Carolina, for my time.
North Carolina.
Yeah. I bid you. Oh, sorry, UNC.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Tar Heels, man. So I go up there, and I've got a ton of family legacy there. My grandfather has a building named after him, and all this stuff, right? Actually, now this is funny. If anybody thinks that there's not a God and he doesn't have a sense of humor, I gotcha. Okay. So a week before, the dean tells me you can't stay here anymore. We break ground for this building for my grandfather. Okay. He passed away in 86. He had Lou Gehrig's ALS. And he was so beloved by so many. And he was a really great man. So we break ground on this thing, and a week later, I'm asked to go home and stay home. Now, what happened was I would go home, spend Thanksgiving at home, and then the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, I went to treatment. All my buddies went back for exams. I went to treatment. The building that we broke ground on, that's the Center for Alcoholism Studies.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. Yeah.
Wow. I have no words.
Right. Yeah. I have many God universe moments in my life, a couple here. So 5 years later, the building is complete, and we all go to dedicate it. And I speak at that dedication as a recovering alcoholic, sober since then. That's, again, the universe's way of saying, hey, come make it right, kid. So now remember, I'd flunked out, and then I went back sober, and then I flunked out again sober. Wasn't into
What
it.
happened?
I didn't have the executive functioning stuff really with it, and all I wanted to do was play drums. And who ruled the Third Holy Roman Empire? Not really my bag. I don't really care. I didn't have it. So after a few semesters, my GPA was still down, and I was academically ineligible. So I screwed it up sober too. And I decided at that point, well, music's what I want to do. I'm going to do music. So that's what I did, and spent probably 4 or 5 more years in North Carolina, then moved to LA, did a music school program there, and really loved that, and lived in LA for almost 15 years. Started touring and got to see the world and play and do that kind of stuff. It was great. And then I moved, I had an offer to move to Utah when I decided I was going to get off the road. I had an offer to move to Utah. And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife and the mother of our kids, she was living here, and had an offer to do some studio work and then work in treatment at Cirque Lodge, just as a tech, see if I liked it, that kind of stuff. So I moved here, chipped away at the degree that I never got, right? So I got all my undergrad stuff finally done, and it came time to do grad school, and I was all set to go to the University of Utah for their program. And I thought, I'm going to apply to Chapel Hill. I'm just going to see. It's, one of the top 5 social work programs. I'm going to see. Wouldn't that be cool? And the universe said, hey, kid, come make it right. And I got in. And so Jen and I moved back to North Carolina. And I got to go and walk that campus again and feel that. And it was very powerful for me.
That's a total full circle story.
Yeah. Yeah. So I graduated with tears, it was just that thing. And another thing was, being in recovery. I was in recovery there. So going back there and being in the, one of my first recovery communities was so just, some of the old timers were still there, and they, even remembered me. But just to sit in that room again and be like, wow, there it is. I remember this place. And then having, the kind of the California recovery community experience. And I got, again, with music, I traveled so much, I got to go to meetings all over the world. So,
yeah.
I had been really enriched at that point. And I was back there, I was 25 years sober. It was pretty ridiculous. And in grad school doing the deal.
And then you managed to make it back to Utah, though, because you liked it so much.
Well, I like being married, and I like my wife. And so, I want her to be happy. So we ended up in Nashville, actually, right after grad school.
Okay.
I had an offer to go there and work at Cumberland Heights with great folks. I speak very highly of them for honest reasons. They treated me well, for one, but they were really wonderful. And their mission is something that they fully believe in and do really well with. So I went there because they wanted me to come in and help them put together, with the great guy, John McAndrew. They wanted John and I to put together a musician's track for treatment for professionals in the music industry and stuff. How do you stay sober on the road? Well, I know a few things, and now I've got a degree and a license and stuff to, put the clinical aspects of that into play and really help them figure that out. So John and I did that, and it was something that we were really proud of. And we were there for about 3.5 years, had our son there. And then the time came, Jen was just like, I just need to be around my family. And I was like, I get it. And we were, my family was in the Carolinas, which is still a good 6 to 8 hours from Nashville. So still kind of felt isolated, and it was just time to get back. And so we came back here, and I had interviewed at a few places, and I asked a buddy, I said, what are some reputable places that you think I'd be a good fit? And he said, you need to talk to Ryan Salter. And so I got in touch with Ryan, and, a couple of conversations later, and there I went.
And now, for folks that don't know, what's your actual title? And you are at Ascend Recovery, which is in American Fork. But What's your actual title? I'm
the general manager of the universe. I had to. I am the clinical director and one of the therapists here. So I've been here for 5.5 years.
And you're part-time comedian too.
Well, there's that. It can't all be heavy. You got to have some levity here and there, right? Or you're just going to break.
I mean, having a sense of humor is inherently therapeutic. So laughter is, I think we can write scripts for that, right? Okay. So having heard a lot of your personal and professional, like the journey interwoven leading to where you are today, knowing the twists and turns, the recovery community, the music, the return to education later in life, the prioritizing family to focus on where you are geographically. I mean, all of that is that was just a gross summary of all of the beautiful things that you just shared. With that said, do you see yourself as successful?
Yeah, I do. That is not to say there haven't been a lot of failures along the way, right? I mean, hell, I just told you I flunked out of college twice, right? And then I got to return at the wonderful age of 39 to undergrad life as the world's oldest living sophomore, and that kind of thing. But it was really, there were plenty of stumbling blocks along the way. I mean, if you don't think that you're going to fail in life, you got a lot of rude awakenings ahead of you. Even in the music business, my first gig out of music school in LA that I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm playing and I'm gigging on the level that I want to, right? Well, I graduated and from that program in the fall of '98, and got asked to audition for a guy who had kind of Stevie Salas, who was Rod Stewart's guitar player for a while. And so I'm like, okay, that's a cool name and credit and stuff. And it was a European tour for a few weeks. I'm like, this is okay, cool. And I went, and it was awful. It was utterly horrible. And the reason being, there were a lot of factors, but one of which was like, I was good, but I wasn't great yet. And I was playing with people that were great and needed me to be great. And, I had some aspects of my playing and stuff that were great, but honestly, I wasn't great enough. And so the tour went the way it went. And at the end of that, it was 3 weeks and I was home, and, that was the end of my tenure with Stevie Salas, and he and I are friends now and all that stuff. But it was really hard for me to take that to heart and make it into a learning experience. What recovery gave me was the ability to take my own inventory and not anybody else's. And so I got home from that and I was really beat up from it. My confidence was shot because I couldn't play to the level that I wanted to, that I knew they needed and stuff and everything. And I had been hearing about that the entire tour, and that was not helping me at all. But I got back, and the guy that recommended me for the gig, who's a great friend of mine to this day, Mark Schulman, Mark, I called him up and I said, hey, man, I want a lesson. And he goes, oh, okay. And he said, come on over. And so I went over there, and he said, okay, play. And I said, I want to know everything that is wrong with my playing. I don't, I trust you, gloves off, give it to me straight. And he played, and I told him that Stevie had been kind of harsh with the feedback, and it was hard for me to be around and all that kind of stuff. And, he was pretty demanding because it was his gig. He needed excellence, right? And I'm over there just kind of wanting to be liked, But so Mark said, okay, play. And so I played, and, after, a minute or so, he waved me to stop, and he goes, all right. He goes, first off, man, you play great. So to hell with all this stuff. Now, that being said, there's a few things in your playing that you can clean up that might make a real difference between you getting a gig and not getting a gig. And they're really subtle, they're really slight, but they do make a difference, because the next guy's going to come in with that stuff together, and nobody will be able to tell you what the difference was, but he will have, when they play with him, it's going to feel better than when they play with you. And I was like, all right, man, let's do this. He gave me 3 exercises to do, and I did those for 6 months, all day. And then I got called for this recording session, and I went in and I played, and I remember going up and listening in the control room to the playback, and all of a sudden I sounded the way I always wanted to sound. It was confident, relaxed, musical, all of those, very, very steady, even, all of that stuff. And I went, okay, there it is. So, again, through the failure of that first tour, I got my sound, I wish I'd had it when I went on that tour, but it took what it took, I was married before. This is my second marriage. So, yeah, I was on the road with Joe Bonamassa when that ended. And it wasn't like a fidelity thing or the typical rock and roll horse shit. It wasn't any of that stuff. We just didn't happen. And that was really hard on me. My parents are divorced. I didn't ever want to end up in that class, that kind of stuff. But there's a real part of me that felt like a failure for that. And I did a lot of work, getting through those kinds of things in my own therapy practice and everything. And I'm happily married now. Jen and I have been together for, 15 years. And we've been married for almost 12. So, we've got a son and a daughter. It's ridiculous, But I remember the pain of sitting on that couch by myself with the cat when, my first marriage was over. And it's just me in the house with the cat. And I'm like, oh. And the funny thing that happened in that moment was I was like, okay, how's this going to go? And when I played it out in my head, it was like, well, you're going to go back on the road. You're going to do your gig. That's what I was doing at the time. And you're going to do that. You're going to continue to stay sober. You're going to continue the therapy to heal. You're going to heal. And eventually you're going to meet somebody, And I just went, okay. It just hurts really, really bad right now, And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And as you're talking too, I'm just thinking about, well, first, I appreciate just the vulnerability and honesty of a lot of what from the outside we would identify as these like struggles, right? Or the failures. But in reality, it's an experience that you can choose to grow from, right? And that there's such a transference of that regardless of the situation. How, in treatment, in recovery, like in life in general, right? It's just about choice. It's about the hand that we're dealt, how we internalize it, and then the choices that we make moving forward. And so there's just so much that you're talking to us about, which is super cool. So I'm going to go a little off script.
Do it.
You are a great, I shouldn't say, I don't know why I was like leading with a different expression. You are a great musician still. And one thing that I find about you from a humility standpoint is that you don't lead with the fact that you have your own drumstick line. Come on. Okay. You got it. Like, can you just tell us a story? Like, at what point did you get, like, just give me the deets on that.
All right. It's not as cool as you think. I mean, maybe it will be. I don't know. So when I got the touring gig, and I started to have more of a high profile presence, I got endorsements with Yamaha for drums, Paiste for cymbals, Remo for drum heads, and Vic Firth for sticks. I'm still with them. They have been so supportive. I mean, I'm getting like literally teary because of how great those companies and really the people at those companies have been for me. When I decided to get off the road, when I decided that this was what I wanted to do, they were all like, dude, that is awesome. We're so happy for you, and they still support me, and, I still have great relationships there. But while I was touring, one of the things that Vic Firth offers is like, hey man, if you want, we can send us your signature and we'll print it on the sticks that you use and you can have that. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. As the eighth grader in me is like, dude, I got my signature on a drumstick, that kind of thing. That's huge. But so they did that, and it was a stick that they didn't make anymore was what I really wanted. And I talked to them, and they said, yeah, we still have the equipment set up to do that. They didn't sell. And so we didn't, keep them in production. But if you want them, we can do that. The catch is it's a minimum order of 500 pairs. I had a discount. I still had to pay some. They give you an allotment for free, and then you got to pay anything over that. So they said it'd be a minimum of, this and all that. And I talked to Joe Bonamassa, who I was with at the time. And he goes, yeah, man, we can just expense that as part of the tour. Do it. Totally. We got you. And he was, that's a thimbleful of the gratitude I have for Joe. He was so great to me over those 5 years. Yeah. So we did that, and all of a sudden I'm getting, boxes of sticks with my name on it, and it was, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, I did. I got to play at a very high level, and I'm really, really grateful for that. I worked my butt off to get there. And it did pay off. And again, tons of failures along the way. A lot of stuff that I put my heart and soul into that I had to leave because I felt like it had run its course. And that could be seen as a failure or bailing on something or whatever. But it was really more of kind of like honoring the truth that I knew in my heart and having to live with that if I didn't. And I didn't want to do that,
Yeah. And I think that it goes to show for anybody that's listening that you can have an amazing career, right? You pour yourself into one particular track to make yourself the top in that space, right? Like to be at that expert level. And then if you decide one day Like, I'm done. This is it. There's something else that's out there for me. It's okay. Go do that. You know, like that is what life is. It's not, I love my parents dearly. They lived and worked in the same place for 30 plus years. And that's just gone are those days where that is a norm. It's totally okay to switch careers. It's totally okay to change course. And it's totally okay to have failed experiences. Mm-hmm. It's just about how you move forward from them.
Totally. And you know, I mean, when I look back, I mean, I was bucking the system from the get-go. You know, I want to be a drummer. Well, my entire family is like, you know, financial planners. My dad was a stockbroker. I mean, all that stuff. I was like, this was not what we had in mind for you, son. That was, you know, not really the thing. But I guess it was 2 weeks before my touring gig with Joe ended. When I left, it was this is a great story. I got another one. So it was Thanksgiving. It was that week of 2010, and we just happened to play the Peace Center in Greenville, South Carolina, which is a beautiful theater there, in my hometown. That week, that's the week I got sober. So I go to my home group that week that I got sober in. I take my 20-year chip, right? I play the Peace Center for, like, I mean, my dad bought out the first 3 rows. I mean, it's like, you know, and then it was like my entire 8th grade class showed up. I mean, it was so awesome. It was unbelievable. And then, you know, 2 weeks later, that's the end of the tour, and I'm all good. You know, I had this incredible moment, and we celebrated Thanksgiving there and all that stuff. You know, again, I can't design moments better than that, right? But I'm bucking the system. Well, I'm glad I did. You know, I'm glad I changed it. And that night, you know, my dad walks up to the front of the stage as we're taking the bow, and he goes, "I want that stick." You know, and I was like, "Well, who else do you think I'm going to give it to, man?" And I handed him the stick and gave my mom the other one, and, you know, all that. And just, yeah, really, really cool moments.
Yep. It sounds beautiful. That's like what I'm picturing is just this like beautiful, beautiful moment. Bogie, I feel like you are full of stories, and we could probably keep going for a long time, but I'm going to wrap up there because I want the invitation to exist for anybody that wants to reach out to you, right? Like a parent parent that is questioning whether or not their musically inclined child, you know, is it safe to be on the road or to be gigging if you're newly sober? You know, like there are so many, I almost feel like we could probably have a separate podcast just demystifying what it means to be in recovery in the music industry. And maybe we will have that conversation. But otherwise, for now, it's just open invitation. We'll have contact information in the show notes of the podcast for anybody that wants to reach out to you. But Bogie, thank you again for being a guest on the podcast.
Absolutely grateful. And thank you for asking me. Honored to do it.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email joanna@lillyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lillyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.
Do you have a teenager or young adult who seems to have lost their way? Maybe they need help navigating adolescence, adulthood, and decisions surrounding higher education. Or maybe they have become withdrawn, their grades are slipping, or they are flat out living a reckless lifestyle, and you're concerned about their health and well-being. If this describes what your teen or young adult is facing, a therapeutic consultant may be able to help. Mental health, addiction recovery, and higher education can all be equally expensive. While information is everywhere, how do you know what option is the best one for your family? Some parents have the time to research and navigate this on their own. Some don't. If the latter applies to you, enter therapeutic consultants. Therapeutic consultants, like Joanna, listen to your family's specific needs and advocate on behalf of your loved one. TCs will research therapeutic resources, recommend treatment programs, and assist during adulthood transitions. Not being affiliated with any program, their support is completely objective and catered toward the best interest of each unique family. To find a qualified therapeutic consultant to work with, check out TCA, also known as the Therapeutic Consulting Association. Their website is therapeuticconsulting.org, all one word. Again, that's therapeuticconsulting.org. Then click the Find a Pro tab up at the top.